Please be seated. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not taken a false oath by my life or sworn deceitfully. He shall carry a blessing from the Lord, a just reward from God his deliverer. Such is the circle of those who turn to him, Jacob, who seek your presence. Selah. My name is Rabbi Aaron Boxt, and I, on behalf of the family, thank you for being here to support the family as we remember the life of Rabbi Ze'ev Harari. Unfortunately, I didn't know Rabbi Ze'ev very well. I only got to know him a little bit over the last few months, but I've actually been a part of Carmit's life for over 20 years. We worked together with Hillel years and years ago. Had I never known who her father was. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know who her father was when I found out that Rabbi Ze'ev Harari was the rabbi here. And then I met him. And the moment I met him, I was like, yeah, this is Carmit. He was a lovely man who was gracious and thoughtful, incredibly intelligent, and a man that really helped to build this building. And if you look around, he is here everywhere. As I didn't know Zev very well, the family has asked that Rabbi Kamen from Gainesville, who had a very long-lasting relationship with Rabbi Harari, to lead our service. So now I'd like to turn the service over to my colleague, Rabbi Kamen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Our people respond to death with a blessing. In fact, as Jews, we have a blessing for everything in life. We have a blessing when we get up in the morning. We have a blessing when we go to sleep at night. And this time has a special blessing, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Literally, it means praised is the judge of truth, but essentially, it underscores our realization, our recognition that there is much beyond our control. And we gather here today with heavy hearts, with great emotion, understanding or not understanding, in fact, exactly why it is or how it is we must be gathered here together. Adonai Natan v'Adonai lakach yehi shem Adonai mevarach. The Lord is given, the Lord is taken. Praise be the name of the Lord. This time of the year carries with it in Jewish tradition a special reading. It is the book of Ecclesiastes, which appears on the Sabbath of Sukkot. And let me share with you some words from Ecclesiastes chapter 3. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. A time for planting, a time for reaping, a time for keeping, a time for loving, a time for embracing, and a time for healing. A time for laughing, and a time for weeping. A a time for dancing, and a time for wailing, a time for giving birth, and a time for dying, a time for speaking, and a time for silence, a time for seeking, and a time for losing. We're privileged today to have 3 speakers who are here and who are going to share this spot with me. I'd like to first call on a colleague of Rabbi Ze'ev's, Reverend McSwain.
Shalom. Thank you. In the nascent years of Christianity, oftentimes one of the foundling churches sent greetings to another church, such as the church at Corinth to the church at Ephesus, via a letter often beginning or containing words like these: "The brothers and sisters of the church in Corinth send you their love." The letter might wax on for a mercifully few brief paragraphs, or an insufferably long tome that you thought would never end. In the spirit of that tradition, however, on behalf of the church located about 50 feet or so that away, I'd like to offer these words to Temple Beth Shalom. The brothers and sisters of First Congregational United Church of Christ send you their love. Rabbi Ze'ev Harari, henceforth and forever to me, Ze'ev, was my colleague and my friend. Colleague as clergy, leading our respective communities of faith, and at times each other's communities of faith. And friends because we trusted each other. Did you catch that? We trusted each other. Trust became the hallmark of our friendship. Not only the trust we had in each other, in presuming that our words and actions were sound and based on solid ground, even if at times we didn't always fully understand each other initially, but how we worked together with both of our congregations materialized that trust. The divides between and among us all, Ze'ev and me, Temple Beth Shalom and our church, were significant. A language barrier, although his command of English was a sight better than my command of Hebrew, given that I know only 4 Hebrew words, and 3 of them are probably Yiddish and don't belong in this place. And the countless differences between our 2 faiths, mysterious in so many ways, odd, rooted in ancient traditions, seemingly for tradition's sake. How does it go? Why do we wear our prayer shawls? I don't know, but it's a tradition. Anybody remember that? And we must admit, although confessing would do us more good, that in addition to not understanding each other for decades, centuries of mistrust between our 2 faiths have combined to elevate prejudice as natural, commonsensical, because as everybody knows, that's how they are, and you know who they are. But not to Ze'ev. Not to Ze'ev. Over coffee, tea, bagels, breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, he would ask, "What do you understand about?" And our discussion might lead to some feature of the Christian or the Jewish faith, Israeli and American government and politics, roles and relationships between religion and politics in America, but mostly, how do we foster trust among our two congregations? And while you may judge his gentle manner as chameleon-like, think again. Look around you. Look where we are. Look where we are. Look what we have created. Ocala Tree of Life Sanctuary, I will forever hold in my heart that we never could have created this place without Ze'ev, without the trust that he encouraged, exemplified, and modeled. Will you excuse me? I have to do this every once in a while. Not that such trust was some Pollyanna glad game, let me tell you that. Ze'ev and I had an occasional tete-a-tete, but they were always transcended in trust, not only in the generalized basis of truth-telling, but upon which assembles what I call the bobbin weave index. That refined, flexible, self-assured, trusting, horizon-aimed, immediate and forever faith in each other, that we could trust our communities of faith to each other, trust each other's pulpit to each other, the relational catalyst of our Ocala Tree of Life Sanctuary. Remembering the number of occasions that Ze'ev and I appeared in public forums, stage, airways, print, is impossible, but I clearly recall having no idea so many times what would occur at those events, what questions we would field, sometimes questions nothing other than ugly invective fashioned to belittle and to condemn one or both of us. But I never worried about that, never worried for a second. I never worried about those moments because I knew that we'd vamp our way through, trusting each other within the sanctity of our own traditions and our mutual respect and our honor. I have words to share with you two in just a minute, but I want you to permit this. The renowned American theologian Matthew Fox, formerly of the Roman Church's Dominican order, excommunicated, now an Episcopal priest, offers an equation that, to my understanding, is very important to what we do here at Tree of Life Sanctuary. In the great lineage of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and Thomas Merton, Matthew Fox equates the words faith with the word trust. Faith and trust. Maintaining that faith focuses on an ascent to ideals, whereas trust focuses on the strength of relationships. In that sense, he preferred the word trust to the word faith. Perhaps this works for you. Give it some thought. Strength of relationships. Strength of relationships. Thus, Lynn and Carmit, we grieve your loss of your guy. We grieve your loss of your dad. Not just as some assent to ideals of what we're obliged to do when somebody dies. We grieve within you, sharing in measure a portion of the bitter cup that you must drink, knowing in measure its pungent, bitter flavor for ourselves as your heart, our heart. And if for a moment I may don both my pastoral and my rabbinic roles, hear these words. 50 years ago, almost to this day, I was horribly injured in a car wreck. And only by the heroic measures of strangers surviving. 2 days later, awaiting surgery, my father, observing my tears, asked, "Hal, I know you're in pain, but what else is on your mind?" To which I answered, "I have no way to thank those who saved me, and no way to thank the doctors and nurses." This is what he said. He said, "Hal, it is an act of grace to allow others to care for you. It lets them work out their full humanity." Lynn and Carmit, and anybody else listening, allowing others to care for you enables hearts to continue beating, both yours, mine, and others. Lynn, you asked me the other day, what am I going to do now? And then you answered your own question. You quoted your mother. Your mother said, "Put one foot in front of the other." She's right. Along with accepting the grace that others will share with you to the degree that you let them. I am suspicious of any formulaic incantation of any faith tradition promising relief from grief. But I am certain that our merciful God shows up through our words and our actions, our touch and our tears. Blessings to all of you. Blessings to all of you. Lynn, Carmit, you tree of lifers, you. Hold each other tightly now and always, and let us always be thankful that we shared our world with our brother, your husband, your father, my Rabbi, Ze'ev Harari.
I first met Rabbi Ze'ev Harari on a Skype call. I was on one of many rabbinic search committees over the years, and we were interviewing someone who called himself the Rabbi Chef. Before there was Zoom, we used Skype to video chat. After the video, we invited him to come and do services and get to know the members of Temple Beth Shalom. It didn't take long before the shidduch was sealed. He moved to Ocala and became the rabbi of Temple Beth Shalom. We all soon came to know the kind, spiritual, knowledgeable, singing man that he was. By the way, the Rabbi Chef made great hummus. He led Temple Beth Shalom through some very troublesome times. He taught us to be kind to each other, to experience God and spirituality through song and joy, and helped us heal as a community. Ze'ev loved to sing, and he especially loved to sing a Debbie Friedman song. Any Debbie Friedman song. He was a personal friend of hers, and he carried the torch after she left us. Temple Beth Shalom is indeed well-versed in the Friedman repertoire. I'm sure he and Debbie are still singing together today. I'll always remember him when I hear certain melodies, and I'll always remember what he taught us about the 150th Psalm. It's the last in the book of Psalms, and it sings of praising God with trumpets and harps, timbrels and dance, cymbals and flutes, because when we are finished with words, there is music. He taught many of us many things. He taught the children to open the ark for Aleinu and gave each one a piece of chocolate as a reward. They all looked forward to that. He was especially proud of his bar and bat mitzvah students and his conversion students. Bringing each of them into Judaism was a sacred task for him. Rabbi Harari officiated at my son Spencer's bar mitzvah, and I know that it meant a lot to Spencer to have a man like Ze'ev Harari as a Jewish mentor. he always found a way to weave humor into what he was doing. When we were finishing up with that Skype interview I spoke of, Rabbi Harari said he thought this was a good match because we were looking for a rabbi and he was one. He would often finish services by saying, "We will now turn to the closing hymn." It's called the closing hymn because it comes at the end of the service. In addition to being my rabbi, Ze'ev Harari was also my patient. I treated him for a variety of conditions, and once I removed a kidney stone. And in the recovery room, he started having chest pain, and it turned out he was having a heart attack. They took him to the cath lab, opened his artery immediately, and he did fine. Afterwards, I heard the wisdom of Rabbi Ze'ev Harari. He said, quote, "I picked the best place in the world to have a heart attack." He served not only the Jewish community, but the Ocala community at large. One of my patients recently told me he was a counselor at Alcoholics Anonymous. I never knew that, and I never knew the extent of his kindness and giving. We should always look to his example. One song of Debbie Friedman he liked was Shalom Aleichem. He said it was the last one she wrote, and I think he would like us to sing it together. So please sing with me the chorus of Shalom Aleichem. We'll do it twice. See how I can do, right? Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One more time. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Goodbye, my dear friend. Zichrono levracha leolam va'ed. May his memory be a blessing forever. Thank you.
There are times when your mind just blanks. And one of those times was when I got the call in the wee hours of Monday morning. One of those times was when I got the call in the wee hours Monday morning. The Zev had passed. It was the first day of the festival. Somewhere I'd read or heard that tzaddikim may pass on the first day of a festival, a righteous person. And Zev was a righteous person. He was quiet in his works, how he helped people, as Harvey just said. When I lost my mother, he was there. He was there for me. And afterwards, we were talking, and he gave me some advice, which really helped. And that was, he said, don't remember the difficulty. Remember the good times. And as simple as that sounds, it was profoundly comforting to me. So, Zev, thank you for your kindness to me, to my family, kindness to this congregation and all of its members. And Zev made an impact outside of this congregation. He was active in interfaith. He was also active at Congregation B'nai Israel. And one of the first people I called was Rabbi Kamen. I'm thinking, oh boy, a first day of a festival, he's not going to answer.
No matter, I'll see him later today. He responded to me. Zev was just that kind of guy, compassionate, loving, and very self-effacing. He had the driest sense of humor, never at anybody else's expense, but he poked fun at himself in a gentle way. And many times, we've been sitting here in services and we get a chuckle from him. Something he said, some way he delivered it, his timing was always very good. I'll miss him driving with us to Gainesville. That was our time for many years. We talk about a lot of things, a lot about Israel and Israeli politics. He kept me up to date. He'd be reading from his phone something from Haaretz, a newspaper, and we'd be discussing the state of affairs, solving them, of course, resolving everything. But this is my memory of Zev. And although he had his health challenges, I don't think he ever really slowed down. I think he continued the giving. I think he continued the loving, continued spreading kindness all the way along to the very end. God bless you, Zev. Be at peace.
From Psalm 103, Kirachem Av al Banim, as a father has compassion for his children, Adonai has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned, and God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers in the field. The wind passes over them and they are no more. Adonai's compassion, however, is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones, endures age after age, unchanging. Lynn and Carmit, and all of our friends here. I knew Zev for many years, and I enjoyed hearing his biography. We never talked much about where we had come from. Zev treasured the relationships in his life. Lynn called him soulmate. Carmit called him treasured father. And hearing from so many of his congregants and friends, he called him their rabbi, their friend. But he was an uncle of Adi, Asaf, Ayalon, and Osnat, Amir, Dahan, great uncle of Tal, Gili, Or, Ayalon, and Roni and Noam Dahan, cousin of Dita Bar Tov, Merav, Balazs, Noam Bar Tov, Gilad Bar Tov, and families, former husband of Rabbi Schwartz Harari. Ze'ev was born and raised in Haifa. He attended Leo Baeck High School, and there he was exposed to Reform Judaism while studying abroad in Newton, Massachusetts during his junior year, and this led to his involvement in the founding of the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, the Reform Movement's sister movement abroad. After serving in naval intelligence in the Israel Defense Forces, Rabbi Harari went on to earn a master's degree in Hebrew literature from the Hebrew University, and then to study for the rabbinate. And he was among the first Reform rabbis ordained in Israel through Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, and I understand he's honored to have some other colleagues here with him today. Rabbi Harari served as rabbi of 3 congregations in Israel before moving to the States in the 80s, and he had a 40-plus year-long career, serving congregations throughout the Midwest and Southeast, teaching religion at various colleges throughout the country, and youth advisors for Telem Noar, the Israeli Reform Movement. Rabbi Harari worked on the first Israeli Reform prayer book. He was first editor of the Israeli Reform Movement's newsletter. He was a leader in interfaith work in northern Israel and spent summers teaching youth at URJ camps. Rabbi Harari loved music and singing, as you all know. He believed that music should be participatory and connect people to liturgy, psalms, and texts. And he incorporated that music into his services and into his general life. There is so much that we could say on Rabbi Harari's life. I knew him as a colleague, much like you knew him. In fact, I would call him a chavruta, now not in the traditional sense that we studied together, but we learned from each other. From him, I learned important skills and the rabbinic presence that he had honed over many years. And I hope he learned a few things from me as well. What I recognized in him early on, as I got to know him, was his understanding that we as rabbis do what we do for various reasons. But in our case, in his case, it was love of Judaism and love of the Jewish people. And I know someone's going to say, well, that's probably true for all rabbis, but the truth is, some people just enjoy being a rabbi. Zev never forgot that he did this because he truly believed that our tradition had something very important to offer the world. And despite a 40-year career in the rabbinate, he loved the Jewish people. Well, that really wasn't meant to be a joke, but it was. I believe it to be true.
I think the 4 rabbis we were at first.
We rabbis, yeah.
That was Zev. That love of Torah in the large sense. It's what drove him. It's what kept him optimistic because, friends, that is actually what our tradition teaches us. to stay optimistic, to dive deep into life, and despite whatever difficulties we may encounter in life, to move forward. Because the greater mission has nothing to do with us as individuals. The greater mission has to do with what Ze'ev stood for in his life, what he shared with countless individuals. I had occasion to see him teaching and sharing with some of his students, some of whom may be in this room today. And I saw the love he poured into his teaching. Now, after 40 years, those of us who have been teaching for a long time, some of the speeches could be repetitive. You might even say they kind of roll off of our tongue as we've done these life cycle events and these times with congregants over and over again, but Ze'ev never lost the love and the personal touch that was so important to be able to connect him to those who were seeking guidance and who were learning from him. That's a rabbi's rabbi. And that's who he was. And even though we were rabbis at different congregations, of slightly different ages, in different movements, denominations, and with different backgrounds, the Israeli, me American, we understood together what the job was, what the task at hand was. And as sad as I am, and was this past Shabbat, not to have Ze'ev with me, I was comforted to have Carmit with me this Shabbat. But as sad as I am not to have Ze'ev with me on Shabbat, because he was a constant presence, I am also proud that he got to do what he did, and he continued to do and give to the Jewish people throughout his life, up until his last days. He was a rabbi, and he represented. What more could be asked? The mysteries of life and death are beyond human understanding. We are perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish befall those whom we love. In sorrow confronted by death, which has taken Rabbi Harari from our midst, we feel our frailty. Roe Israel, shepherd of Israel. Guide us, your flock, with love and compassion. If in our grief we grow distant, do not abandon us, but draw us closer to you. Grant solace and comfort to those who mourn. Let them sustain each other with a blessing of memory, the memory of the life of Rabbi Harari in the valley of the shadow of death, beside the still waters and the green pastures. You, Lord, are our shepherd. Be our strength, our shield, our guide. Be our comfort throughout all the days of our life. And let us say amen. Harvey told me that Rabbi Harari loved to sing the 23rd Psalm. But unlike Rabbi Harari, I'm not really a singer. But like Rabbi Harari, I do love the words of the 23rd Psalm. They're printed in your program. And I'm going to invite you to read these words in English along with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I invite you to rise now for El Mole Rachamim. El Mole Rachamim. Shochen Bamromim. Hamse Menucha Nechana Takat Kanfe Heshkina. B'malot Kiddushim Utahorim Kizohar Harakia Mazirim Ed Nishmat Harav Ze'ev ben Moshe Shimon Halevi v'Yehudit Shahalach la'olamo Began Eden Dehemenuchato Ana Ba'al Harachamim Hasti Rehu B'Seder Kan V'Chali Olamim Usror B'Isror HaChayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuam b'shalom amishkavo v'nomar amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Rabbi Ze'ev Harari, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say amen. You may be seated. Creator of life, you give the gift of your spirit and we are formed. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. Grant strength to all of us now, whose burden is sorrow. Let us say amen. In a moment, Rabbi Box and I will lead the Mourner's Kaddish. We'll invite you to rise for that. But the Mourner's Kaddish, this prayer, In fact, it's not really a prayer about death. It is a prayer of God's greatness, but even deeper, it is truly a prayer of faith. It is a way of asking for strength when we have no strength. It is a way of reminding ourselves of blessings when we feel bereft. And its concluding line is a prayer for peace. Because above everything else, we Jews pray for peace, not only for the entire world, but a kind of inner peace as well. We need that inner peace now. Rabbi Balazs.
If you'd like. Mitch, Michael.
Okay, yes, of course.
His brother Aki and his sister-in-law Rina.
His brother Aki and sister-in-law Rina. We want to acknowledge his brother Aki and sister-in-law Rina, who are watching us from Israel. These days, you never know who's watching. No, and we acknowledge they're joining us today.
Rabbi Mitch Delcal and Rabbi Michael Shields are with us.
And our esteemed colleagues who are with us, classmates. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbam, v'yalma divra kirite v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agalag v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbam v'barach le'olam ne'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitboar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yidadar v'yidaleh v'yidalal shemei d'kudisha b'richu. Li'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tishbechata v'nechamata da'amiran b'yama v'imromein. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Aseh shalom b'mrama. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace above bring peace to us and to the entire world. And let us say, Amen. And that concludes our service.
There will be a Shiva Minyan here this evening at 7 p.m. Of course. If you would like to join us, please allow the family to walk out before everybody else walks out. The Shiva Minyan will not be live streamed. May you go in peace as you came in peace. Amen.